Did Netflix put out a sequel to Tiger King? No. Are the people here a lot more moral than the Tiger King people? Yes. Tigertail focuses on a man named Pinjui, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that name, and chronicles his life from when he was a young boy to his young adult years all the way to his middle-aged years. As an older man in America, he struggles to reconnect with his estranged daughter, and as he attempts to make things right, he looks back at his life in Taiwan and the decisions that led to where he is now. I was looking forward to this when I saw that it was written and directed by Alan Yang. He co-created one of Netflix's best series, Master of None, with Aziz Ansari, and also wrote a number of episodes for Parks and Recreation. Both are filled with plenty of laughs as well as a lot of emotion to go along with it, especially Master of None. And here there aren't so much of the laughs, but there's still the emotion, even if it's to a lesser degree as either of the two shows. So let's discuss. This movie's broken up into 3 distinct time periods and repeatedly jumps back and forth between all 3, mainly between Pinjui as a young adult and as an older man. We only get a little bit of him as a kid. And I like the stark contrast between all 3 time periods. As a kid, things were very moody and grim. As a young adult, things felt very upbeat to a certain degree. And as an older man, things felt very subdued and reflexive. The movie does a great job giving each of the time periods a very distinct feel that allows you to easily tell the difference between all of them when it repeatedly cuts back and forth. We get a story of a man who's been through a lot and has endured plenty of hardships through a very long life. We see how the decisions he made in the past and some of the sacrifices that he made can have long-term effects in the future. It's a story that I'm sure many will be able to relate to, at least to a certain degree. I think of all the time periods, the one that I found most enjoyable was Pinjui as a young adult. I liked the more lighthearted approach that it took. The soundtrack choices here were very upbeat and it made it feel very engaging, because there was also a sense of inspiration throughout most of these scenes. Seeing this young man who aspired to build a better life, working through so many hardships and challenges, had this feel-good sense to it. And while it wasn't all peachy keen, seeing this young blossoming romance that happened during this time was also nice to see. My favorite performance though was easily Tzi Ma as the older Pinjui. A lot of his performance relied on visual cues and facial expressions, which made for some truly stellar acting. Most of his time on screen, he says very little, but you can tell this is a man who's broken through the many years of struggling, as well as some of his own bad decisions. Even if I didn't agree with all the choices that he made, such as how he interacts with some of his family members, I still managed to find empathy for him, so that was great. The way this movie jumped back and forth between the 3 time periods I think became its biggest issue. At 90 minutes, this would have benefited from being a little longer. There are parts of this journey that just don't feel earned because not enough time is spent looking at certain character aspects. This is most prevalent in the scenes of Pinjui when he's older. He has an estranged relationship with his daughter Angela, which is meant to be one of the driving forces behind this movie's emotional core. But to be honest, I had a hard time truly caring about what happens between these two. The acting's fine, and I get that part of the drama stems from them having difficulty connecting and talking to one another, but we never really see any of the events that led to them having such an estranged relationship. We get dropped in the middle of things at the beginning of the movie, and we do get context fairly quickly that they don't talk to each other much, but beyond that, we don't have much else to go off of at first. There's an emotional distance not just between the two characters, but between them and the audience as well. And it takes way longer than it should have to get there as to why we should care about the relationship between these two. We get long sequences of Pinjui or Angela sitting there in silence by themselves, reflecting on the previous scene, but not much really progresses story-wise. But then right after some of these sequences, it then just cuts away to Pinjui as a younger adult. And then we don't come back to the daughter storyline until much later. And by an hour into the movie, when it focuses a lot more on that, we get this big emotional moment between these two. But it doesn't really have the emotional impact that it should have had because we really don't spend enough time with them. So we don't really feel the gravity of the situation. We were mostly in the past. The thing is, there's still so much that happened to Pinjui between where the younger adult stuff ends and the older man stuff begins, yet it's only summed up in so many lines. So it leads to this disconnect between the two time periods. And while the moments of him when he's older aren't bad on their own, it's just that we could have seen so much more. And then that way the full emotional weight of some of these moments could have been felt way more. You know, we really don't know much about Angela, other than that her and her father don't talk much, and she's going through some other problems at the beginning of this movie. There's nothing else about her character-wise that makes her inherently interesting. She's really only made intriguing by the problems that she has and less so by any specific character trait. So that leads to some difficulties caring about the relationship between her and her father. Honestly, this should have been structured more as a 2-hour or so epic tale. That way we would have been shown more instead of getting a Cliff Notes version explained to us as to what happened between the two time periods. This movie was fine. There's stuff about it that can certainly be appreciated. The performances are definitely what carries this. And all the scenes with Pinjui as a younger adult can be very emotional and very engaging. And to some, even feel inspirational. But there's a serious disconnect between that time period and when he's older. And there was so much more that could have been explored. It just makes the second half not feel earned. Ultimately, it's not bad, it's just nowhere near as gripping as it should have been. Tigertail gets a 6 out of 10. There's certainly worse Netflix has to offer, but there's also a lot that's better. This is like a mild recommendation. It's worth checking out like once, but I'm not planning to see it again anytime soon. Though with some of its themes, you may end up getting more out of this than I did, and you may want to revisit it. Who knows? But let me know, did you see Tigertail or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you enjoy the performances? Did you not mind the story structure? And what's one of your favorite movies currently on Netflix? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you like what you see, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.